Welcome to this presentation in Joomla Days Netherlands 2024. I'm Nicholas Dionysopoulos. I'm the lead developer with Akeeba Limited. And today I'm going to talk to you about monitoring your sites without breaking the bank. So first of all, the question is, why should I even need to monitor my sites? Well, you start by making a site. Yeah, you made a Joomla site. Awesome. But this is the beginning. This is not the end. What we mean by that is that your site is like adopting a pet. If you have a cat or a dog, you know that you need to clean up after them, you need to feed them, make sure they have water, right? It's a commitment. It's not like you got a pet and you're done. It's a bit of the same with a site. It needs some time, love, and care. There are plugin updates, there are core updates, there is security of the site that you need to take care of, there are backups. There is all sorts of little things that each one of them doesn't take a lot of time, but altogether they can add up to a significant amount of work. So how can I do that? The obvious answer is that I'm going to do it. I build a site, I'm going to do all the maintenance. Sure, but this means that you're spending your time, the work keeps piling up. The more sites you have, the more extensions on those sites there are. Then you start spending even more and more time that you cannot use to execute other productive work, like create more sites, which is what your clients pay you for, and you end up getting burnt out, which is not very good. So in the last decade or so, a different kind of service has appeared that can do all the site monitoring. That's a valid option because it saves you a lot of time. It is something very easy that anybody can set up. But at the same time, you have to consider the two downsides. One is that you're giving full access to all of your sites to someone. And the point is, do you really trust them with that? Do they have adequate protections in their terms of service and privacy statements? Are they in a jurisdiction when you can pursue any breach of that trust? And of course, not to mention that the more sites you have, the more money you need to spend. Even if it's a site that it's basically in maintenance mode and the client doesn't pay you much, you still get to pay the service. So yes, it's easy. Yes, it saves you time, but there are a few negatives there. Or you could use something like Panopticon that we're going to talk about today. It does save you time because it does the work instead of having you do the work. It's moderately easy to set up. Basically, the know-how it requires from you is setting up a site, which, considering that you are people who build sites, you already have. It is absolutely private because you own your own data. It's not shared with anybody else. You have absolute control on all of that. And it saves you money because the entirety of the cost that you have is basically hosting another site, Panopticon itself. So what exactly is Panopticon? And I will start with the name, because Panopticon actually comes from a Greek word, from a Greek myth, the myth of Argos or Panoptis. He was a giant who had eyes all around and he could see everything all at once, and it was said that he had 100 eyes. And when he was asleep, only half of them were closed. And this was also taken over, that name was taken over by a British philosopher, Jeremy Bentham, and he decided to make a system where you could see everybody all at once, and he named it Panopticon. So basically, I'm taking the same word because Panopticon can see all of your sites at once, all the time, even when you're asleep. So Akeeba Panopticon is a free of charge, self-hosted, free and open source software for site monitoring. It's not a service, it's software. The requirements for hosting Panopticon are pretty much the same as hosting a site. It runs on commodity commercial site hosting. So you need a commercial host or dedicated virtual server, whatever you use for your sites. A domain or subdomain, of course, you need somehow to access it. PHP 8.1 or later, MySQL version 5.7.9 or later, or MariaDB 10.3 or later. As you may have noticed, these are database versions that have been around for over a decade. So basically, any kind of hosting that doesn't absolutely suck will do. And very important, you need to have cron jobs which can run every minute. This is something that the suckiest of hosts do not offer. So keep that in mind. When it comes to how Panopticon talks to your sites, or rather how your sites talk to Panopticon, there are two different ways. When you have Joomla 4 or later versions, there is a connector component that you install on your site, and through the Joomla API application, it talks to Panopticon. When you have Joomla 3.9, 3.10, and in the near future WordPress, there is just a plugin which talks to Panopticon. And this has very minimal requirements, PHP 7.2 or later. So it can run on pretty much any site that you have built in the last, 7 years or so. Installing Panopticon is not that hard either. It's supposed to be easy, remember? So it's a lot like installing Joomla. You get a nice page that welcomes you. It performs a few sanity checks, making sure that your server meets minimum requirements. And when it finds everything okay, it tells you, yep, you can continue setting it up right now. You enter your database connection information, just like you would do when setting up any other kind of site. It installs its tables. It's only a small handful of tables. And then you just enter your super administrator connection information. That's your super user who will be able to control everything. And basically, you're 95% done. The next step is setting up a cron job. On that page, it's cropped here in the screenshot due to the format of the slide, but it gives you step-by-step instructions how to set up a cron job, depending on whether your host gives you proper CLI cron jobs or if you have to use a URL, so a pseudo cron job over the web. And once this cron job starts running, you will see this page, which is Panopticon trying to figure out how long the cron job can run without breaking, without stopping by itself or getting stopped by the operating system of the server. And then you're done. That's it. You're ready to go. So the only input from you was how to connect the database, how you want to log into Panopticon, and setting up a cron job. So it's fairly easy. Now let's talk about the main features that you will find in Panopticon. Well, obviously, first of all, you will have a site overview where you can see all your configured sites. One option is to have them as a dashboard, so you can see just a few information in one card per site, or as a list. If you have a lot of sites, the information density there is greater. For each site, when you click on it, you get into its site information page. At the top, as you can see in the screenshot, you can see some information about the Joomla and the PHP version. It will let you know if the Joomla version you're using is about to become end of life or if it's already end of life, as well as the exact date when this happens. Same thing for PHP. So with PHP, it will let you know about a year in advance that this version of PHP is going to become end of life in a year. So you have plenty of time to plan ahead and update the site. You can have automatic Joomla updates or get notified about Joomla updates. And this is something that you can set up both globally and per site, and you can have rules. For example, you can say, if it's a patch version, like 4.4.3 to 4.4.4, install it automatically, because you know this is unlikely to break anything. But if you have a minor version, like 4.3 to 4.4, send me an email. Or you can say, if you have a major version, Joomla 4 to Joomla 5, don't do anything. I know what I'm doing. Don't bother with it. You can also set up Panopticon to take a backup of your site before installing an update, as long as you have Akeeba Backup Professional installed on that site. Something similar also applies for your extensions. You can have per extension preference. So for example, you can say, I know that Akeeba Backup and admin tools, when you go from one release to the next, even if it's a major release, they don't break anything. So install any version, whatever. But I have this calendar component which between minor versions like 1.0 to 1.1 changes things and would break my site. So install only patch releases, and for the rest, send me an email, and I will figure out what to do. And that's what Panopticon will do for you. When Panopticon detects a few common problems with the updates, it will offer automatic ways to fix them. Like when the updates in Joomla are appearing to be stuck, it can help you get them unstuck. This is one of the nice to have features, It will monitor the validity of the HTTPS, the TLS certificate you have installed on your site, and it will send you an email to notify you that it's going to expire. You can decide when that will be. So most sites that you have probably are using Let's Encrypt, which automatically updates about 3 days before the expiration of the certificate. In this case, you would need to have an alert go off 2 days before the expiration, because that would mean that the automation which reissues the certificate has broken on your host. So you have 2 days before the site starts throwing errors. If you are using a commercial certificate, for example, on sites which need extended validation, that validates not just HTTPS, but also says the business name, these are only issued with a validity of 1 year. So you should set up the alert to go off about a month before the certificate expires, so you have enough time to repurchase the certificate. It can also show you a few things about the server. This only works on Linux and macOS servers. And remember that this is not per site information, this is per server information. It can show you the total CPU usage of the server, the total RAM and disk usage of the server. So you can tell if you have a slow site, is it my site? Is it the limits of my site, or is the server the problem? About the CPU utilization, if you see a low CPU utilization, but a very high I/O weight, like 10% of I/O weight, this means that the server itself, the hardware, cannot keep up. It means that the CPU is waiting for the disk and the network, which means that your server is very old and needs to be taken behind the shed and put down. Basically, you need a new server. So keep that in mind. And yes, I have seen sites with huge I/O weight. This is why I implemented this feature. It came in handy a few times. On that page, you can also see an overview of all your extensions. You can see the name of the extension, the installed version, whether there are any updates, whether any automatic updates are scheduled to be installed. If not, you can click a button and schedule an update for that extension. For Joomla 4 and 5, you can also see the download keys for the extension, if it's there, if it's missing, and you can edit it directly from Panopticon. So this comes in very handy when you realize that, oh, I have forgotten to put the download key for JC and Akeeba Backup. Just click there, enter the corresponding ID, and that's it. You don't have to log into the site and go through 50 different hidden menus to get to that information. Towards the bottom of the page, you will see two areas. One is backups and the other is security. These will only work if you have Akeeba Backup Professional and Admin Tools Professional, respectively. Regarding backups, not only you can see which backups have run on your site, but you can also schedule backups. So if your site is on a server which doesn't really support cron jobs reliably, you can have the backup scheduling through Panopticon itself, just like you would do with a third-party service. Panopticon will be what runs the backup. Likewise, for security, remember that Admin Tools Professional has the PHP file change scanner, which comes in very handy at spotting when things have changed on your site when you don't expect it. But this only really works if you have it run on schedule. And like backups, you can schedule the PHP file change scanner through Panopticon itself. There are also a few helping features, like if your IP gets blocked, you can unblock it through Panopticon. You can tell Admin Tools to disable the plugin completely or disable the .htaccess file, because sometimes you click on something, you get locked out, and then you're like, oh no, what am I going to do? No need to use FTP or SFTP or anything. Just go to Panopticon, click the button, and most of the times that's enough. There are a lot more features that I wouldn't want to put into slides, because then you would get bored. It could be like an hour of showing you slides, but I can go through a few of them very quickly. You can have schedule reports on available updates and actions performed, because this is something that you will most likely need to present to your clients and say, okay, you have a maintenance contract with me. Here's what we did on your site. These are all the actions that we took automatically with our monitoring software. So you can justify the cost of the support contract. You can, of course, also have those actions report on demand per site or per group of sites. There is an automatic connection troubleshooting. So if you cannot connect to a site, it will help you identify the problem and resolve it. You can have extension and core updates overview across sites. So you can say, okay, I want to see all the sites which have an update on JC. And then just select them and say, okay, install. That's it. It will automatically schedule the update for all these sites. Comes in handy, or for Joomla, There is basic site uptime monitoring with email alerts when a site goes up or down. This is very basic site monitoring. It does not keep history. It only notifies you when a site goes up and down. That's it. And remember that you're only monitoring from one location, which is not very reliable, because it could also mean that the server where you run Panopticon has a connectivity issue, not the actual site. Just keep that in mind. There is a ton of features which allow you to customize Panopticon in any way you want. Basically, you can do full white labeling. You can do template overrides, just like in Joomla. You can do a theme CSS override. You can change all the email templates so they fit your brand. So when your clients receive an email, it will be branded. Speaking of clients, there are user groups, there are permissions, so you can invite your clients to Panopticon, and they will only be able to see their sites, and you can even limit them to only see and not touch anything, because we all know that when it comes to clients, things happen by themselves. They didn't do anything. It just stopped working by itself. So you can prevent that by itself bit. Anyway, it is infinitely customizable. You can even write your own code, so sky's the limit. It's a matter of how much you want to tinker with it. And on this note, I'm going to answer preemptively some frequently asked questions, which have come up in previous presentations that I did and in discussions with other people, etc., etc. Does it only support Joomla? Well, right now, yes. It's only Joomla 3.9 to 5.1 inclusive, but I'm currently working on WordPress support, which means I have the connector ready, and I am now changing the internal plumbing in Panopticon so it can support one more CMS. Does it replace third-party services? Yes and no. Panopticon is an alternative to third-party services. It is not a drop-in replacement. Remember that the major selling feature of third-party services is that you don't need to set up anything. You install a connector and it's done. This is not the case with Panopticon. You need to do some more things. Also, we have our own feature set. We're not trying to copy the feature set of some or all of the third-party services out there. We have a pretty good idea of which features we want, which features matter. We're not going to put features that made sense with Joomla 1.5, but no longer have a reason of existence. But third-party services which had added those features back when cannot remove them because they may still have Joomla 1.5 sites, So we have a different feature set. We're not going to copy anybody else's. And in the end of the day, you need to think of it like you're using Joomla or WordPress as an alternative to a hosted solution like Squarespace or Wix. This is the context in which you would be using Panopticon as an alternative to a third-party service, if it makes sense for your use case. Which is the next question, why should I use it instead of a service? Well, it has lower cost, especially if you have a ton of sites, like if you have 100, 200 sites, because you only pay for the one server instance that you're running Panopticon on. You're not paying additional per site. You own your own data, which, depending on the kind of businesses you make sites for, may be very important. For some of them, just having their data available to someone who is not inside the European Union could be a problem. And I'm not aware of any third-party service that's currently hosted in European Union. You can white label and customize it so people don't need to know that you are using Panopticon. And in the end of the day, think about which features Panopticon offers, which features a third-party service offer. What is your use case? What is your unique use case? What are your needs? What is the problem you want to solve? And figure out which one solves it best and choose the right tool for your use case. So I'm not going to tell you that Panopticon is the only thing. you should ever use. I'm telling you that it's something that you should have in mind when thinking about site monitoring. Is there documentation support? Well, yeah, of course. It's software I have written. Of course, there is documentation. It's in GitHub. The wiki tab at the top has the documentation. There is support in the discussions tab of the GitHub repository. This is peer support, so most of those discussions I will participate, but it's not necessary that I will, or that I will be the one answering the question. There are other people who have been using Panopticon since day one, and they are pretty well versed in it, and they will be able to help you out. And because many people have asked, no, there are no paid support plans or any plan to have a paid support plan. Wow, English is confusing. Yeah. Can you invite your clients? Sure you can. That was a major consideration when designing the whole thing. There are users and groups. There is a user group and permission system in Panopticon, which allows you to do exactly that. So you can invite a client who can only see their own sites, or maybe they have an employee who should only see one of those sites. They can be read-only, they can have full control, or anything in between. You can select it with the permissions. So yes, you can invite your clients in a way that makes sense to your business use case. And the question that everybody's asking me, how can it be free of charge? What's the catch? Well, first of all, it's free and open source software, so there are many people working on it. While it's mostly me, it's not just me. Other people provide code, translation, ideas, testing. There is, there is some community behind it. It's not just me doing things. You get to host Panopticon yourself, so I don't have to pay for a server which will monitor your site. You do. So there is no cost for me to pass to you. And in all honesty, your subscriptions to our paid software is what gives us the money to be able to make free of charge software like this. And conversely, this free of charge software will hopefully convince you to buy a subscription to our paid stuff, since it integrates so well with it. So there you go. It's free of charge because hopefully some of you will pay for something else that they need, and this will give us the money to keep this free of charge. Simple. Will you have a hosted version? That's something that quite a few people had asked me, especially in the beginning. No, Panopticon is a software. It's not a service. The whole point of Panopticon is that you own your own data. I'm not interested in making a service where I own your data. I want you to own your data just like you own your data when using any of our software. Like Akeeba Backup, you own your own data, your own backups. We don't know where they are stored. We don't want to know where they're stored. Admin tools. All of your security configuration is up to you. We don't know about it. We don't want to know about it. Akeeba ticket system. You run your own help desk. All the content in the help desk is yours in your database, nowhere else. I don't know what you're talking about with your clients. I don't want to know what you're talking about with your clients. My approach to software has always been, how can it be absolutely private? And that's where Panopticon comes in, to make site monitoring as absolutely private as possible. And another thing that other people have asked is, what if someone else makes a hosted version of Panopticon? I cannot stop them, but the license is Affero GPL 3.0. That A in the AGPL means that any changes they make to the software must be published free of charge to anybody. So if someone makes a hosted version, they're also giving us the source code of what they have made, which acts as a deterrent. So it is, let's say, unlikely that someone else will make a paid hosted version. Conversely, this means that you can make a hosted version for your clients because the minimal things that you will change are just your branding. So sure, yes, you need to publish your changing, which is the CSS that's already available to download over the network. Yay. And now you can ask me just about anything. Let me see. Yep, here's my face. The QR code on your screen is a link to Panopticon's GitHub repository where you can find downloads, documentation, discussions, just about anything. If anyone wants to ask questions, yeah.
Are there any questions?
Yes. Can you monitor also websites from another server?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea, right now my production copy of Panopticon runs on my local NAS, on my home server. And I am monitoring our business site, which is on Roken. I'm monitoring my blog and a few other smaller sites that are on different hosts. They're not just on different servers, they're on different hosts, on different networks, on different countries. So yes, you can monitor just about anything. Yeah?
Will there be a pro version with additional functionality?
No, because it doesn't make sense. It's what I said, it's free of charge, right? Hopefully, you are already a subscriber to Akeeba Backup Professional, Admin Tools Professional. If you were not, seeing that this integration is available and solves, the backup and security problems of your site, you would buy that. So this is what I want. More features will be added to Panopticon through admin tools. Like right now on my backlog, there is a feature which will compare the core Joomla sites, the core Joomla files against those published on the download site of Joomla to make sure that they have not been tampered with. This will be a feature in admin tools which will be able to be scheduled through Panopticon and get the notifications through Panopticon. So that's basically how we're going to add these more premium features.
Is it necessary to put the cron job on 1 minute, or can it also be 5 minutes?
Actually, there is a documentation page which explains that you need to put it on on 1 minute. Sure, you can put on 5 minutes, but this means that the availability of processing power for automation is now 1/5. So one cron job every 5 minutes wouldn't really work. Think about it this way. You're running a backup, right? So you have this cron job that runs once every 5 minutes, and it can run for probably a minute. So you're taking a backup for a minute, you're hitting the time limit, you stop. The next 4 minutes, nothing happens because there's no cron job to pick up the task. Then you hit the next 5 minutes, the cron job runs, you run another minute of backup. That backup would take 5 times more time, and while that backup is being taken, no other automation in Panopticon would be able to take place. So we recommend cron jobs to run every minute, and if you have a lot of work to be done, to have more than one cron jobs. Like if you're monitoring 100 sites, I would say you need 3 or 4 cron jobs. If you're running backups on those sites as well, you might need between 5 and 10. And I know why you're asking that question, because you have a really crappy host that only allows cron jobs to run up to once every 5 minutes. Get a better one, man. You can have a Linode Nano node for $7 a month, and you can do anything. The processing power it has is far more than what you need to monitor 1,000 sites. So don't just limit yourself to a crappy host just because this is what you have. Use the right tool for the job.
Right, Nicholas, thank you for this software, using it from day zero instead of a well-known service I used previously. How can I configure uptime monitoring or downtime notification?
Uptime monitoring was added pretty recently. So first you would go to system configuration and make sure that you enable the feature. By default, it's disabled because this adds more work to Panopticon to do. And once you do that, then you go to its site and say that the monitoring, the uptime monitoring type you want is Panopticon. That's it.
Okay.
And then it will notify you when the site goes up and down.
Haven't found that yet. Thank you.
Nicholas, do you have any plans or ideas about adding other CMSs like Drupal or Typo 3?
Not right now. The way that I'm changing the plumbing now that I'm adding support for WordPress is that it eventually would be possible. My problem is that I don't have that much experience with either of these CMSs, and it needs quite a bit of experience to know how updates to different CMS versions, to different extensions / plugin versions would work with its CMS. So that's gonna probably be a no for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? No.
Nou, ik heb er wel een, maar mijn Engels is niet best.
Wat is je vraag?
De vraag is, die ik heb, is de connectie die maakt met de API, hoe dat in elkaar steekt.
He is asking how the connection between the API key and the application is working.
Wat de access level zijn.
What the exact access level has to be.
So right now, Joomla only allows super users to create API keys for the Joomla API application. So you have to be a super user. And because of the kind of access that Panopticon needs, even if Joomla in the future provided more fine-grained API access, you would still need super user access. Because, you know, we are installing software, we are installing core Joomla updates. This means we're changing the software on the server. The only kind of access that would allow that is super user.
Okay, yes. Any more questions? Last 5 minutes. Any questions? No questions anymore? Okay. Nicholas, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.